welcome back to the channel, guys. Good to see you here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for liking, commenting, etc. But most of all, thank you so very, very much to the sponsors. Because without you, this channel would not exist. Today, we will talk about an important aspect that, upon occasion, is gotten wrong in models. But today we'll discuss Deadeyes. And fortunately enough, from archaeological evidence, we have plentiful surviving to be able to track the development of the Deadeye. And without further ado, one of the things that we do like about Deadeyes, we being maritime archaeologists, is that they are, roughly speaking, datable objects. In other words, they are diagnostic artifacts. They provide us with at least two basic types of information. The one is they allow us at least an approximate dating of the site. You cannot date it down to a year or two, but there are certain trends that you can follow, and they at least guide you in the right direction. The second part of it is Deadeyes, of course, are proportionate to the rig, to the size of the mast. So in archaeology, when you do not have much surviving, and usually nothing at all of the rig, excluding odd cases like the Black Sea wrecks, etc., or the Baltic, in such cases, sometimes Deadeyes are the only guide that you have to figure out the approximate size of the rig. And then the locations of Deadeyes can help you find the orientation of the wreck on the site if there is very limited preservation on the site. That may be the only guide you have. So all in all, we absolutely love Deadeyes. And while I'm on the subject of archaeology, before we enter into the beef of the Deadeyes, the part that would be of interest to maritime ship modelers, let me point out also that more often than not, we do not actually have the Deadeyes themselves surviving. We have the chains, or the chain plates, and the metal parts where the Deadeyes were installed. And they are of equally great assistance because they do demonstrate the size. Then, of course, there are a few wrecks that have yielded complete Deadeyes. The most obvious ones are Vasa, Mary Rose, Lomelina. Most of the wrecks in the Baltic, or at least a significant number of them, and from some other places. There have been published studies of rigging material based on archaeology. Of course, the most obvious I forgot, namely the label, which is in Austin displayed now and was conserved at Texas A&M in the research laboratories now. And there have been done a couple of studies. There is an article, there is a master's thesis based on statistical analysis of blocks and Deadeyes discovered from shipwrecks. It's not a bad article. However, the writer has become, the researcher has become a little too obsessed and enthusiastic with the softwares and what sort of tables the softwares can produce. And they are not necessarily connected with any actual useful information. Nevertheless, if you ever run into them, by all means read them. They will contain at least some interesting facts in them. The basic trends of the development of the Deadeyes are obvious. From the point of view of what they were used to, I probably do not need to spend too much time telling ship modelers how and why Deadeyes emerged. Essentially, they are an instrument through which you are able to set up your rig. And especially in the days when the rig was made out of natural fibers, this was a perpetual job for the bosun and his crew. There was nothing else that was so variable. In dry weather, it tightens. In exactly the opposite. In wet weather, it tightens. In dry weather, it slacks. So you have to compensate all the time for this in order not to lose your rig. In order to secure this, you have to have fairly efficient means of tightening and loosening the rig as the need may be. And the Deadeye was a perfect, low-tech, highly effective, highly efficient solution to this problem. Very often nowadays in models I see the lanyard. So let me take a step back before we. First of all, the Deadeye is essentially a chunk of wood shaped with a number of holes drilled through it. The shape changed over the centuries. In earlier times, the shape was essentially triangular. Gradually, by the first half of the 17th century, the author of the article that I mentioned earlier suggested that they are more heart-shaped. I personally have some doubts whether the carpenters who manufactured them, the riggers, actually saw such a huge difference between the two. I think that they just simplified the shape, made it easier to shape it, and we do not really have sufficient statistical sample to be quite sure that there is a separation between the triangular heart-shaped and the more heart-shaped. Be this as it may, this carrack from the supposedly showing a vessel from the mid-16th century is giving a clear view of the triangular Deadeyes. The part that attaches the lower to the hull consists of two things really. The channels, which protrude to the side, from the side of the ship. Their task is to spread the footprint of the shrouds to secure a better support for the mast, and of course to make sure that the shrouds are clear and not rubbing against the side of the vessel. Fairly easy job with the extreme tumble home of the period. The Deadeyes are surrounded with an wrought iron collar that is connected to the side of the ship through bolted, usually at the channel whale, at the lower whale, with initially chain was used for this in the later Middle Ages. By the 16th century, we begin to see the chains becoming elongated chain links, but the name stuck. With, especially in 16th century, sometimes actual chainry continued to be used at the beginning of the century, the late of the 15th century, continued to be used on the mizzen mast, but the main and foremast, where the stress is much higher, developed these elongated links. Here the channels and chain plates on this carrack all are based on an article by Tom Ortling dealing with their excavations of two sites in the Caribbean, the Molasses Reef Wreck and the Highborn Key Wreck, where although there is very little of the hull itself surviving, we did have concretions that proved to be chain plates. So this is about as historically accurate, at least that part is, as you can get in the state of current knowledge. As I said, they are through bolted to the hull initially. Then the second group of Deadeyes is turned into lower end of the shrouds, and the distance between them is spanned with lanyard. And that lanyard is what is allowing, what essentially the modern turnbuckle does on a sailing yacht. This is what the lanyards did back then. While we are on the subject, it might as well be some curiosity to point out that what goes around comes around. Nothing new is ever invented and nothing old is ever forgotten. In the modern rigs nowadays, with the modern soft ropes developed, the Deadeyes are making a return. And lanyards are used to set up the rig on large ocean-going yachts nowadays. There are numerous advantages. It is much lighter than steel cable. It is also, for the same diameter, stronger than stainless steel cable. It is less likely to catastrophically fail. You can see the wear and tear. And most importantly, you can fix it yourself, so the cost is lower. But before continuing to make advertisements for modern plastic rigs, let's return to the subject. And what I started saying a few minutes ago is that very often I see the lanyards wrapped around themselves a few times and be laid there. That would not be accurate. We do not have contemporary depictions. We do not have contemporary rigging treatises that speak of this. The lanyards were belayed above the Deadeye, not around these, because this is something that you have to deal with constantly on a daily basis. And you simply cannot do it this way. I suppose you can, but it is not convenient to do it this way. So historically, it was not. This is, quote-unquote, the modern traditions developing in the late 20th, early 21st centuries, but not historically. By the beginning of the 17th century, the shape of the Deadeyes begins to change. And in the first half of the 17th century, we still see them with at least remnants of the triangular shape. Vasa is a good example. Hers are heart-shaped, indeed, but the faces are flat. We have enough original Deadeyes surviving on that vessel to know what they look like. Around the middle of the 17th century, however, emerges the modern Deadeye, round, completely round, with convex faces. Examples of this you see here on the Boreas. Brilliant. Otherwise, it is exactly the same setup. And the chain plates are certainly recognizable for an earlier period sailor. The operation of the Deadeye continues to be exactly the same way. Deadeyes that support the rig, that for shrouds, for backstays, are 3-hole. There were some specialized with up to 5, and we have had even 7-hole Deadeyes there, usually for stay collars, but they begin to disappear by the 18th century from use. And that really is the final step in the development of Deadeyes. By the 19th century, Deadeyes still exist, but they have become flat. The faces are flat again as they were in earlier times. They're still round, but they are with flat faces. And the next development in setting up the rig, of course, was the introduction of turnbuckles as steel cables became the norm for standing rigging. Like, for example, the turnbuckles on this little day sailor. Many of you, no doubt, will recognize it from the live streams that Ole carries out. You can see how deeply they differ from the traditional. And of course, most of you are sailors, most of you know this just as well as I do. So with this, I wish you a most wonderful rest of the day. And see you next week again. Thank you so much, particularly to the sponsors. Without you, I would not be making these videos. Thank you so much. Goodbye.